Welcome to another episode of Mission Compliance, Unleashing Growth Potential for Defense Contractors. Today's episode tackles a deceptively sneaky question. What exactly is CUI, and how does it show up during your sales process as a defense contractor? You might think CUI belongs only in the audit playbook or the system security plan. But let me tell you, it can sneak into proposals, emails, and conversations with prime contractors faster than you think. And if you're not watching, one mistaken slip could put your next contract at risk. So buckle up. Today we're decoding what CUI means in your sales funnel, how to handle it strategically, and why getting it right can save your deal, your reputation, and sometimes more. Rabbit season, duck season. We're joined once again today by Mike Frater, President of On-Call Compliance Solutions and a CMMC Professional Assessor. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Hey, always a pleasure, Roman.
So, Mike, as we mentioned in the intro, this talks about CUI and the sales process. And while we may not get too much into what CUI is, because we've covered it in several episodes and videos on our YouTube channel, we do specifically want to hone in on what it means in the sales process and how it can end up in there. So let's jump right into that. Why is it important to think about CUI even before a contract is awarded?
Yeah, I love this. I love this question. So, I'll tell you that a lot of folks start out their journey focused on the process of producing whatever they produce. Producing the work product once they've won the award. And they focus in on ERP systems, and they focus in on production methods, and they focus in on, where are their files and all kinds of other stuff. And what happens is, for some reason, there's like a mental block on the entire sales process because sometimes that is pre-award and they just don't factor it in. As a matter of fact, it's so bad that we now have to ask about it in our consultations because if you just say, tell me, let's walk through CUI flow and how you receive it and things like that, a lot of times they'll just dive right into the production process and completely bypass talking about anything that's sales related. So, I love this topic because it is a huge confusion point. Of course, salespeople want the least amount of friction possible in their process to go out and win. They want to be unencumbered. They want to be de-restricted. They just want to go out there. Like their job is hard enough. Um, it's hard enough to go out there and win this work. So, I thought let's put together an episode and let's talk about this because it seems like in multiple cases that we've dealt with, we kind of finish up, we do all the CUI flow stuff, and then someone inevitably goes, "Well, tell me about your sales process." And then all of a sudden, the sales process winds up, being a very complex process with salespeople who have to get access to DoD systems, that just generally need to, have some kind of credential or pass to even get at the information required to put together a bid. And we go, "Oh man, we got to redo this whole thing. It doesn't work. It's not, the scope is wrong." So, yeah, and again, just so I make sure I don't mess up the question. Tell me the question one more time, so that I make sure I don't kind of like step into what the next question is.
It was just, why is it important to think about CUI even before a contract is awarded?
Gotcha. So the why is it important? There's probably three or four reasons. So I'll just try to start going down the line. Why is it important? Well, the first thing to understand is that you're going to have to either stand up or utilize, i.e., put overhead on a compliance system. So included in your bid, you should be factoring in what is my cost of operating this system? What is my risk of operating this system, which is compliant in order to perform this work? That carries with it extra overhead, which means you need to be going up on your price. I cannot express the millions and millions and millions of dollars that we have helped our client companies to secure by revealing this amazing secret and this amazing kind of like thing that is right in your face. But yet everybody forgets to do it. Again, you need to be factoring in these costs, the cost, the amount of money you pay us when we consult with you, the amount of money it costs to run your secure systems, the extra security tools, the extra personnel you need to run your SIEM solutions. All of those things have to be factored into your bid, and they want to see those line items to verify that it makes sense why your bid is so much. Because it could actually technically disqualify another vendor if they're not putting that overhead in. It may not be technically acceptable because they may not be demonstrating that they're going to be compliant and secure in the delivery of their stuff. So this is a really, really important thing that has to be brought about for the sales teams. And sales teams are, boy, I'm trying to think of like a positive way to put this, but they are very stubborn and stuck in their ways. Once they know how to estimate, they don't want to go back and revise their process. And one of the things, in my opinion, that happens with defense work is you have to. You have to revise the process because you've got new requirements put on you as a company. You're not going to absorb this cleanly unless you're a very large company. And still, if you're a very large company, that means you have extra large overhead. So you need to be compensated for this. Yeah, I think, why is it important? My gosh, it's the question is, how much money do you want to lose being compliant and going through everything you're required to do by law and then not recoup that in your sales process? That's the root of why I think it's extremely important. Then the next thing is you've got to factor in that your salespeople are absolutely coming in contact with CUI. No question about it. I mean, I'll go through. I don't know what the other questions are because Roman doesn't ever tell me, and I like it better kind of ad lib. But we can go through examples of CUI in the sales process, and we'll do that later. And when you start going through the examples, you go, "Whoa, man, this is really, really, really extensive, and I can't believe that they're giving me access to this CUI before we've even won the contract." But you need it in order to bid. So, that's got to be something that, I mean, I'll tell you, there's a lot of companies where I think they have more CUI exposed to their sales teams than they do anything in production or engineering. They're seeing it all. And so I think that's another thing is just the general awareness and the idea that you've got to be using secure tools. Look, if you're in Salesforce, right? I'm gonna trigger the listeners here. If you're in Salesforce and you're not in Salesforce for Government or Government Plus, you got a problem right now in your sales team. You need to call us, all right? We need to walk you through an understanding of what's going on. Give us a shout. We don't charge anything to talk with you. You can get a self-schedule link with us at cmmccompliancesecrets.com. But look, if you're using a non-CUI compliant system for your salespeople to put in notes, I mean, all kinds of stuff, right? Or you don't have a CUI compliant system for them to download materials from the DoD or their primes to review for bid preparation, you got a problem, and we got to fix that ASAP here. It's no joke. They're really enforcing this more and more every year. So, yeah, there's infinite numbers of reasons why this is so critical. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this podcast should serve as a wake-up call that it is not just what happens after you win the award. It is probably the case that you are handling CUI pre-award just in trying to get your proper bid or RFP together.
Absolutely. So, what are some common ways CUI might accidentally slip into the sales or proposal process?
Yeah, I kind of figured that was coming. So let's talk about some examples of what CUI is in a sales process. Um, Again, the RFP, RFI, or solicitation from the DoD. So DoD issued RFPs often include CUI, especially if they contain technical requirements, system specifications, government furnished information, right? GFI, or even anything with distribution statements B through F or FOUO markings. Like if you're seeing a document and it's marked because you got access to a system where you can view these proposals and what they want, for sure that is probably CUI, for sure. Then you've got CUI shared via bidder communication. Email exchanges or controlled access portals, things like sam.gov, Pi, could involve CUI, program background with technical content, right? And we know that you guys are privy to a lot of technical content to be able to put together these bids. Export controlled specifications, i.e., ITAR restricted drawings, mission specific data marked as CUI or no form. Um, I talk to salespeople all the time, and when you start digging in and asking questions, they're like, "Oh yeah, they send us that stuff all the time." Well, I hope you're using something compliant to receive that. And oftentimes that answer is no, like we never got told to do that, or it's well, the reason is because they already know you have some defense work and you've signed something saying you would. Product specifications or capability briefs. shared with DoD, right? If a contractor provides proprietary performance metrics, drawings for pre-evaluation, technical white papers for evaluation, these may become CUI when incorporated or referenced in government documentation. So again, all the information you're privy to can be CUI. Drawings for pre-evaluation, technical white papers for evaluation. These may become CUI when incorporated or referenced in government documentation. Subcontractor data used in proposals, including control technical information, NDA covered material marked by subs as CUI, flow down specs that are derived from CUI or marked CUI. And then, I mean, my favorite, all right, my favorite, pricing and cost data. It's a whole category called procurement in the CUI category list. Pricing isn't always CUI by default, but it becomes CUI if it's part of proprietary cost models submitted in response to solicitations. It's marked by government as proprietary or sensitive. If it's part of a DoD contract negotiation package, again, like you can't go putting out cost information, technical specifications, anything that can be reverse engineered into how you're doing what you're doing can't be put out there. It's got to be in a compliance system. Then there's past performance documentation, references to CUI work that was done on another contract, summaries of previous deliverables involving CUI, like weapon system enhancements or, again, technical modifications to existing military gear. Yeah, that's CUI, right? Like what you even did to that military thing, Kofango or whatever it is, like that's CUI. Uh, DoD provided NDA or security forms. These may contain embedded CUI such as contract numbers. Yes, the contract number is CUI. Task-specific requirements, references to CUI markings or restricted programs. Export control data, right? ITAR and EAR data shared during pre-contract technical interchange meetings. This data is often CUI specified due to export control regulations. And how to handle, and so, I mean, I'll just stop there, right? I could go on, but the idea really is there's there's probably as much CUI shared in the pre-award process of winning this thing than there is in the post-award doing the work. So again, sales teams really, you can't kind of slide below the limbo bar on this one. You too have to have and use compliance systems.
You know you're deep into the compliance game when you have a favorite type of CUI. But but how can defense contractors better prepare their sales and business development teams to handle CUI responsibly?
Number one thing, include them in the conversation. Again, we do probably 4 to 6 consultations per week with defense contractors. I would say maybe 1 out of 5 will bring a representative from their sales team to the conversation. And I'm always a little bit dumbfounded by that. Salesperson says, I got this requirement. They pass it on IT. IT recognizes the problem, gets us in there. And then, from there, we tell them bring people at the top of sales into the conversation so you can understand this. And they fail to. Um, I realize those people are busy. I realize you want to guard those people's time because time is money. And if they are working on anything other than bringing sales in, then they're costing the company money. I recognize that. You will cost the company a lot more in fines and ruined reputation and being blackballed from doing business with the DoD if you fail at this. So I think it's worth it. I'll be honest with you. I'm the president of the company. I am a person who runs sales teams. Uh, I take the time for it. At the end of the day, the salespeople have to know what is compliant, what is not, and it's just something that has to be done. So I think, in that realm, it is one of those situations where you've just got to sacrifice a little bit of time and effort on the sales guys to bring them in the conversation. They are your eyes and ears on CUI when it is coming into the funnel. And they probably need to be more educated than anybody about this stuff because, again, you're going to double back and make it a competitive selling proposition. They need to understand that's even possible. That's like a foreign concept. My favorite line for people is when they go, "But Mike, the way we win our business is we do it cheaper than anybody else." And I go, "Well, one, we could talk about value, right? We can get into a value conversation. I'm a sales guy too. That doesn't really work all the time. Second thing is, you will be the cheapest person who is compliant if that's how you're running, but you can't win the work and not be compliant. That doesn't mix. So I think it's just simply mandatory overhead, which is why I say charge for it, right? You document the time the salespeople have to be out dealing with all this compliance stuff. You document every cost associated with it. And boy, if you can do that and allocate it correctly, you can get paid back for all of it. It becomes a zero-sum game. And actually, you can apply overhead profit, which is very fair in government contracting. And you can literally be more profitable by doing this correctly. And we teach you how to do that.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap up the way we normally do, which is a silly question. And I have to say, this one gets weird. And this is another one. This is one with like a multiple choice. So stay with me. If your sales team had a CUI early warning system, what would it be? A flashing red light, a talking briefcase that yells classified, even though it's unclassified, or a guy in the corner nervously eating shredded paper? ChatGPT gets weird with this. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know any of that. But if you could sort through that mess, what would your answer be?
I'm going to say D, none of the above. Here's what it looks like. As much as the paper muncher is pretty funny. Here's what it really looks like. What it looks like is your salespeople get brought back into the process, and they very, very apprehensively go, "Well, actually, we are seeing this information." And then, the compliance point of contact for the company goes. And and then we go, and what systems is that getting entered into? And then they go Salesforce or insert CRM name here. And we go, what version is that? And then they go, not the government one. And then we go, uh-oh, time for migration. Now, can we stop that from happening? Sure. We can talk about the idea of is it feasible to sanitize the information going into that ERP or sales system? We could talk about a lot of things. But again, that starts getting down into very company specific workflows and how sales works and how big's the company. And, at that point, yeah, you got to work with us and, we can bring you down the path of figuring out what is the best way to deal with this. But that's typically how it goes. It is somebody dragging a sales manager, kicking and screaming to the table to go, tell us about the CUI you see. And
UI.
yes, CUI. Um, so I think that's traditionally what the red flag really looks like. But again, my big message out of this podcast is, look, if you're the one who's a point person in CUI, you got to go talk to the head of sales or whoever it is that's managing these defense related sales, government related sales. They've got to be in the loop. They got to be in the loop as much as the project manager, as much as the IT director. It is a team effort. One thing I think that we excel at On-Call is bringing those teams together to solvency. It's very tough sometimes in some companies. Sales doesn't talk to service, whatever the problem may be. But we're very much experienced in helping that to happen. So yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like a whole bunch of scared people running around who don't want to ruin their sales, and operations going, but it's law and we have to sign this. So that's what it looks like.
And that wraps up another great episode of Mission Compliance. We hope our discussion today has provided you with valuable insights, practical strategies, and inspiration to navigate the ever-evolving world of defense. We'd like to thank Mike for joining us and talking about the very important and often overlooked topic of CUI in the sales process. Thanks, Mike.
Always a pleasure, Roman.
But the conversation doesn't end here. We encourage you to continue exploring these topics and connect with us via our social media channels. Share your thoughts, ask questions, and engage with fellow listeners using the hashtag Mission Compliance Podcast. If they haven't already, what should they do, Mike?
Well, sure, they should like, subscribe, and they should definitely tell a friend in the defense industry. Come check out our podcast. Come check out our YouTube channel. We'd love to see you there. We'd love to deliver this up-to-date content and maybe make compliance at least a little bit tolerable, a little bit entertaining here and there, because it might not be the most exciting thing you did today, but on the bright side, you're definitely a little bit more educated and a little bit more capable about how to deal with this stuff in your company.
You heard him. Hit that like, follow, or subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform so that you know when new episodes like this one are released. And we'd truly appreciate if you could take a moment to rate and review the show. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you thought-provoking episodes and high-quality content. Join us next time as we delve further into the dynamic world of defense, security, and industry innovation. Until then, take care, stay informed, and make compliance your mission. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody.